Cait, what an honor to be here with you.
Thank you so much for being here.
My joy. I have to start by saying congratulations, because your debut novel, to write a 500-page novel is no small thing. And not only that, I think this one not only hits all the romantasy notes of sort of the building romantic tension and all the feels and the plot twists and everything that we would want from a romantasy, the world building. But I think it also reaches beyond that to people. And I don't write in the romantasy genre, but I was fully immersed in this book.
Thank you.
And I think it speaks to anybody who would enjoy a coming-of-age novel. If you enjoy seeing a character be challenged and then transform under the weight of that challenge. I think it speaks to anxiety. It speaks to chronic pain.
Yeah.
It's, I thought, a great read both for YA audiences, because it's like romance but not too graphic. But like as an adult, I was fully immersed. So that's quite an accomplishment. So I have to say, start by congratulating you.
Thank you so much.
Of course. So I guess I will start. Well, you know what? How about this? Why don't we, just in case, who's read the book already? Who's already gotten a sneak peek of the book? Okay, good.
That's more than I expected.
Okay, so not everyone. So how about give us a nutshell synopsis of the premise?
Sure. So The Princess Knight is a medieval fantasy about a princess who is trying to win back the prince who ruined their betrothal plans. Her kingdom is relying on her to marry this guy, so she decides that she has to prove him wrong and prove that she'd be good enough to be his queen. And to do so, she goes to this prestigious military academy where she meets his guard and best friend, Ronan. And the two of them end up spending some time together as they train together and end up a little bit closer than they should be. And they also uncover some threats to both of their kingdoms.
That was an excellent synopsis. Can we have a brief Irish lesson? Because Cait's Irish heritage leads all through this book, and there are several, luckily there's a handy pronunciation guide of prince names. How can we pronounce the prince's name to whom she was supposed to be betrothed?
Okay, so the name is Donal.
Donal.
I feel like that he tricks a lot of people with his name. I've noticed that that's like the trickiest one for people. So yeah, it's Donal, like the actor Donald Gleason. Same spelling, same name.
Okay, Donal, and then Clea.
Yeah, Clea, and her full name, technically, because Clea is a nickname, her full name is Cleana.
Okay, and then there is a sort of warrior academy where she travels to, and where a lot of the action in the book takes place, which was a super fun setting. How do you pronounce the name of the warrior academy?
So the academy is Cashlin Costa.
Cashlin Costa. Okay.
Yeah.
And finally, there's a gorgeous, intriguing warrioress who almost kills her in her first duel. Love that character.
Yes.
How do you say?
So that is Neve. I love Neve.
I love Neve too. It's so hard not to give spoilers. I'm not really about it. All right, so I guess I'll begin with the obligatory book talk related question. Because if you don't know, Cait was one of the pioneering book talkers. I believe your first video that went viral was March 13th, 2020.
Exactly, yeah. I'm impressed.
Which was the first day of many that we all stayed home.
It was a very memorable day, unfortunately.
It was. So a good thing also happened that day, which is that we kind of launched into the... and that was... BookTok was in its very early nascent stages at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so that was back in the early days, before BookTok was even really called BookTok, and there was like maybe 5 of us being annoying and yelling about books on the internet on TikTok. So it was really wild when all of a sudden that video got some attention. I thought I was screaming into the void, and then it heard me.
And now it's become this huge, like, influential phenomenon. You know, if you go into a Barnes & Noble and there's a whole table that says BookTok picks. Actually, can you tell us for a minute, what was that first video?
So that first video, I believe I was doing recommendations because we all suddenly had a lot of free time.
Yeah.
And I was recommending some books that came out in the year before that I thought people would like to read. I still remember that because I was recommending, one of the books was We Hunt the Flame, which is one of my favorite books, and I have not stopped, like, it became a running joke that I would find a way to include that book in every video, and I still do, because it's so good, and if you haven't read it yet, please do. Like, do yourself a favor.
I love that you do this for authors, because you'd spend so long writing a book, I mean, years.
Yeah.
Sometimes years. And to have then somebody be a cheerleader and an advocate for that book is, like, incredibly meaningful.
It's my favorite hobby. Like, my favorite thing ever since when I was like in high school was I would we would joke that I ran like an underground library of I would just like hand books to all of my friends and be like, you need to read this. You don't understand. It's going to change your life. And like there's specifically a few that I was known for constantly forcing on everyone around me.
You're like every dream.
It was very fun.
So what I was curious about is after so you've read obviously truckloads of books and been part of the conversation about them and not only opined about them, but then had other people responding and like, so I was curious, after all of that time, looking at these different novels and what you loved and didn't love about them, you had kind of the opportunity to win before you wrote your own book. So I imagine either make a mental list or an actual list of like, this definitely yes, this definitely no. Am I right? Like, would you share a little of those thoughts?
Yeah. So it was actually interesting because I technically started The Princess Knight in 2018, but then I tabled it for a long time because I lived in fear. And it was during that time that I was really like enjoying BookTok and starting to like get to look at books and analyze books in a very different way than I had before. So when I eventually came back to The Princess Knight and I basically did an entire rewrite, I did kind of keep in mind of like, okay, here's the things that I know I love. Here's the things that always bring me joy when I read. Yeah. And those are the things that I really want to make sure were like driven home with it. You know, I love found family. It's, oh my God, it's my favorite trope ever. I love dual point of view. Originally, The Princess Knight was only single point of view. And I realized for story purposes that dual point of view would be better. But then it was also subconscious, like for myself, I'm just like, I love reading dual point of view. I feel like it makes it like 10 times more engaging for me, specifically in fantasy books when there's so much going on. So that was both, yes, for story purposes, but also like, I knew what I loved to read and that's what I love to read. So that definitely was on my mind during that major rewrite.
That's great. You move so gracefully between those points of view, too. I was admiring that. I was admiring several things because when you're a writer, you're reading kind of in at least two different ways. You're reading for pleasure and enjoyment and just as a human, but then also your writer brain is on your
yes.
Do that. You're like taking it apart the way a mechanic, right?
All the time.
And, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. I feel like I'm doing that all the time when I read now, and I'm just like, oh, I can't turn it off.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also a pleasure then because when you watch a writer do something very skillfully, I'm like, yes, well done. Like it gives me joy.
Yeah, I get like, it's like a second level of appreciation for the book, and then also like a personal level of like pride and like happiness for the author. I'm like, oh my God, you nailed that.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
It's so fun.
I felt that way with your book when you just seemed to drop subplots at the right moment. Like, before I even knew I was ready for them, like another character would be introduced, or there would be a conversation sort of half-heard where you're like, what are they talking about now? And then you would move on to the next thing. And this was something I was thinking about, is that as a reader, when you read that, it's that they have created a seamless experience for you. Like when you really sink into a book that you love, it seems inevitable that it would have to be written that way. Like how else could it possibly be? Mm-hmm. But then as a writer, when you try to engineer that, it is anything but effortless. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about when, what were some challenges that, because I don't think people would be able to tell. This book doesn't feel like you sweat over it. Were there things that were problems you had to solve, challenges, and then how did you work through them?
Yeah, so if there's one thing about me is that I love a spreadsheet. So, and I love to outline. Mm-hmm. So when I was doing that massive overhaul, because the original draft of this book, I call it like draft 0. It's like, that really messy first draft, and there's so much of that like completely got changed in this final version. So for that rewrite is where I was really finding like the core of the story that I want to tell. And I created so many different versions of outlines and got to play around with it so much. So that way I was able to troubleshoot ahead of time and I could have something kind of religious, like I could just use my Bible to follow it. And my favorite thing, like when we're talking about like with a lot of subplots, because with a fantasy, there's so much going on. Yeah. And like, even though I like to think that all of the characters in the book think they're in different genres, like Clea thinks she's in a rom-com, Ronan thinks he's in like a drama, Donal thinks he's in Game of Thrones. They're all in different like books in their mind. So in order to maintain that, I had a spreadsheet where I had each character, like what they were thinking and doing in every chapter, even if they weren't there. Yeah. And then like all of the things happening in the background so I could keep track. and know when I can drop it in and like at what stage like that plot would be evolved to be dropped in. And that was the only thing that kept me sane.
That is the kind of thing that a reader doesn't see but feels. And I think that's the reason that because I think when multiple characters are not done well, you feel as if, okay, we've got the main character and everybody's just sort of conveniently, it's like when you see a movie, like a bad rom-com movie, and the best friend conveniently shows up whenever. Or do they have a life? Do they have other preferences? We don't know.
Who knows?
There for the convenience of the protagonist, but your characters did feel like fully formed people.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, who felt like they had their own agendas, and I have not used that method of being like literally where was where.
Yeah, it's so fun for me because then I'm such a spreadsheet nerd. I color code it. I get to have fun with formatting. The things that give me peace in life is like making spreadsheets and like making Canva graphics.
Yeah.
So it like helped me have so much peace of mind though when I was drafting,
Yeah.
because then I could like focus on Clea, what she's doing in her chapter. But then in the back of my mind, I know what Ronan's doing. I don't have to stress too much. I don't have to panic when I switch to his point of view and have to figure out what's been going on.
Yeah. Did the story ever change? I think this is another thing readers are often curious about. If what you envisioned in the beginning is what you end up with. So you can outline very meticulously, but at some point, like, did your subconscious take over and take the story and you had to alter the plan you had made?
Yes, a
Tell
lot.
me about that.
So, like I mentioned with that original draft, it was so wildly different from the rewrite.
Yeah.
And some of those differences I knew when I was writing the original draft, I was going to have to make. Specifically, so as I mentioned, it was single point of view and it was only following Clea. It was also first person. And
Really?
yeah, that's why I had to do an entire rewrite. So I switched from first person to third person.
Yeah.
But during that, I was really like, Ronan kept changing for me. He kept going away from my plans. And like, there was even a point in that first draft where he just like disappeared in Act 3. And I was like, I don't know what you're up to, but I'm gonna have to figure that out later. And so when I went with that rewrite and I started like trying to figure out, okay, what am I doing with this book? What's the plan? What is like my goal with this edit? And Ronan was really at the center of that thought process because I was realizing that I might have to change this to dual point of view. And then that meant Ronan would need to have much more of a significant arc than he originally had. And a very big part of his journey is his chronic pain. Mm-hmm. And I wrote that based off of my own experiences. However, that was not in the first draft at all. The first draft, Ronan dealt instead with PTSD. And I think you can still see glimpses of that in the finished version. He definitely still has PTSD. He's just at a much different place with his journey with it than he originally was. And instead, I decided to make the focus on chronic pain because it was something I was dealing with. And it actually had started because I was doing a little writing exercise just to figure out what I was going to do with him. I decided to just free write and write a few pages just from his point of view and write his backstory again. Yeah. And it was when I was doing that I added a pretty significant thing that happened to him. Yeah. I elaborated on it a little bit more than originally, where he dealt with a very significant trauma when he was younger. And as I was writing that out in the outline, I was realizing, I'm like, no, this is going to linger in a different way than I originally planned. And that's when I realized that he had chronic pain. And that's when I had to rethink a lot of his arc.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I love to hear that. As a writer also, it is comforting to know, okay, other writers also change their minds. How do I move things around? Who is this guy? What is he doing? Like, it's good to know.
I feel like I'm constantly doing that. Like, there was another point too where this was later when I was working on it with my publisher and we were talking about cutting a character. Yeah. But it was one of my favorite characters. Who is it? So it was Kian.
Oh!
Yeah.
No, he's great.
So my editor had a point because the original role that Kian had in the book was as Ronan's best friend. And we were making the change to make Donal Ronan's best friend. Okay. And that made sense for the book. And it was a genius idea. But I love Kian. Yeah. Yes. So I ended up cutting a completely different character and putting Kian in their spot.
I think that Kian offers so much color. Okay, so I actually had a question about Kian, so that's a really great segue. Because one thing that I love is that you have created this very, nonchalantly queer-friendly world.
Yes.
I love this. It's like, it's just part of the facts of the world. I felt like at any time, anybody might fall in love with anybody. Again, it was very sweet. It's not like graphic, but just at one point, another interesting thing about this, like sidebar, is I think that Cait does a great job talking about marriage as being sort of a political alliance, and the characters get that and they accept it. But I thought it was so interesting that Clea's parents at one point are like, well, we could marry her off to that queen, and it's just sort of prominent order. And I'm like, look at that, like look what they did. So then when Kian showed up, I hope it's okay to like. Then Kian shows up using they, them pronouns. It's completely natural and seamless. Like, it's not over-explained. You pick it up, obviously, as a reader. And I'm like, I love that Kian is just allowed to exist in the story, and the issue is not Kian's pronouns. Kian's got other issues.
Yeah.
But we all should be allowed to have our own issues.
Exactly.
Like completely non-pronoun related issues. Like Kian, they're a lot of fun.
This is actually kind of fun. Somewhat related. Someone tagged me in a post that they had made where they mentioned Kian, and they're like, I love that there's a non-binary character who could be annoying. And I'm like, yes.
Yes, to just be allowed to be human.
This is true representation for me.
For sure, and like a bit of a troublemaker.
Yeah, they're just a little insufferable, and I love them for it.
Yeah.
I really like, when I was working on this book, I really wanted to make just a completely queer normative world.
Love it.
Like, if you're making a fantasy, you're making like something, I have it based in different historical time periods that were inspirations, but otherwise it's entirely new. I can do whatever I want. And I was thinking to myself, like, well then let's just let them all be gay. Everyone's queer until proven straight. That's the rule I had for myself when I was working. I'm just like, you know what? We're just not to assume anything. And but it was so fun and like freeing to be able to write that. Yeah. Because it was like a nice safe haven for me, because I wrote this first draft in 2018, and then I was working on it again, and the world is scary sometimes and not fun. So this was like a nice escape. And then it was also something where like, with like all of the close friends I've had growing up, most of us are all queer, and it's just I wanted to be able to show like the people I love in this fictional world as well, and make a safe place for all of us.
I love that. I was thinking as I was reading it that I wondered if you enjoy just spending time in this world where like somebody's gender or sexuality is like as much of a non-issue as their shoe size.
Yeah.
It's just like there's other problems like
war
and murder and betrayal.
There is war coming. We don't need to worry about pronouns.
Right. And on that note, tell me a little bit, actually, while we're on the subject of world building, tell me about building this world. How did you decide what it was going to be like when you dreamed something up?
So it was a very interesting thing for me, because I had like always been trying to write books, but I'd never written a like second world high fantasy before. Mm-hmm. So this was like a very fun experiment for me to see what that would be like. Yeah. And one of the biggest inspirations for me with the world building was Irish history and Irish folklore. So originally it was a lot more loose, but again, that huge, massive rewrite where the book actually became itself. I had been doing a lot of research into Irish folklore at the time, just for fun. Again, I'm a nerd. And I had realized a similarity between something already in the book to a piece of Irish folklore that I've always really loved, which is the four treasures of the Tuatha Dé Danann. And so for people who don't know anything about Irish folklore, the Tuatha Dé Danann were basically the pre-Christian deities in Ireland. If you probably have heard of some of them, specifically like if you're a fantasy reader, you might have heard of the Morrigan. The Morrigan is one of the Tuatha Dé Danann, and actually, so in The Princess Knight, the deities called the Trevanum are inspired by the Tuatha Dé Danann, and the god Rian is inspired by the Morrigan. But so as I was doing some more research into the four treasures of the Tuatha Dé Danann, I realized that there was a connection already to some items in the books, and I decided to really lean into that and have fun with that. It also gave me an excuse to do so much research, which, again, my happy place. So I had a lot of fun building up from that aspect, and then it was really just looking at all of these different things that interested me and being able to incorporate them in fun ways, getting to like, this was really just an excuse to dive into like my favorite folklore, my favorite times in history. So like I was really looking into like 800s and 900s Ireland a lot, and using all of that research to help inform this world and see what would best help the character's journey, and then overall also the political state of the world in the book.
It is very complex, the political state you built here. As it goes on, you're really like, holy cow, Alliance's betrayal, and it's very well done.
Thank
I
you.
was actually wondering about, because you've played a few battles and fight scenes.
Yeah.
And in my novel has a grand total of 1 fist fight. And I was like, I can't even make this fight. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, so like, I had to actually ask a friend to choreograph that for me.
Love that though.
Dude, like if this happened, what would happen? And then as I was reading your book, I'm like, holy cow. So did you single-handedly imagine all of those moves, and then she sweeps out his ankle, and then it stabs him in the eye, and like, or tell about that process.
I had a lot of fun with those scenes. So it's actually very funny because I do not know how to sword fight. Again, nerd. So I know nothing like that. I have no like background in fighting. I did Taekwondo when I was in elementary school for a year, maybe not even. So I was very inexperienced, but I love fantasy, and that includes fantasy movies, fantasy books. So I always like have watched sword fights and stuff, and I always find them very fun. You know, I love going to Ren Fair, watching the joust and the chess match.
Yeah.
So that I think really helped me with writing those scenes. But it was very entertaining because when I was working on the book, I thought those would be like the hardest scenes for me.
Yeah.
But they ended up being some of my like easiest and like favorite scenes to write for some reason. It was like a lot of dopamine writing the violence.
So you could just visualize specifically how they would beat each other up.
Well, but the irony too is I can't visualize when I write.
Okay. Wow.
So I was really just a lot of guessing.
Wow.
No, I watched a lot of videos to like make sure I understood how things worked. And
Yeah.
I also when I love swords, I think swords are really cool, and I love researching them as well. We're really learning just like my levels of being a nerd here, but I collect swords and daggers and stuff. I find them very fascinating. So that kind of helped me be a little bit more prepared because I collect them, I feel like I should know what not to do with them. So I had that background to help me out.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it was just really entertaining for me. I did have to draw diagrams though.
Okay, here's another question I've been thinking about. There's an adorable animal companion.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about Murphy.
Yes.
And the kind of creature that Murphy is, and whether that's something from Irish mythology or you invented that.
So it is from Irish mythology, but much more recent. So Murphy is what is called a dorku. A dorku is basically a giant man-eating dog otter creature that lives in lakes. I love them.
You've all seen it from Pokémon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But so the actual story around the dorku is one that I find really interesting. There's a few different versions of it, but basically it is a man's wife is killed by a dorku at a lake. He goes, kills the dorku, but dorkus have mates. And the mate comes and fights him, and they fight for days. And I've heard some versions where he dies, but most of the versions I hear is where he kills the dorku. And if you go into Ireland, you can actually see a dorku carving on a grave. Wow. So I just think they're really neat. I find them very fun.
The one that they wrote that was adorable. I know that
Murphy's
sounds
precious.
Yeah,
I think honestly, all small, cute, and fuzzy creatures should just be a little bit violent, just to switch things up. No, Murphy's great. I love him so much.
How did you decide to put in an animal to give her a little creature companion?
So this was actually, again, a lot of credit to my editor at the time who came up with this idea. And we were talking about what type of companion Clea would have. Yeah. And then me loving folklore was immediately I know exactly what Clea needs to have as a pet. I think it really shows who she is, that she would see this creature that is known to kill people and be like, oh, a friend. Yeah, I love it.
I was wondering, I made a joke about the lake, but I was wondering, so you grew up on Long Island,
yeah,
as did I, as did probably some of us, and I was wondering, although clearly your book is set in a world of your devising, I might have been just reading into this, but as I was watching Clea in the beginning, in her kind of setting in Allendor, is that right? Allendor. So she is a princess, and she really wants to do right by her family, and unlike the sort of, brave style princess of like, but I want to shoot arrows. She's like, no, really, I want to do whatever needs to be done for the kingdom, including just do what I gotta do.
Yeah.
But definitely you notice that her parents are very interested in like luxury, lifestyle, gossip, image, and it's very important. She makes at one point a comment, I think to Ronan, about it must be nice to have the luxury of not worrying about every word that you say, like not having to have it be perfect. And I thought of both sort of the kind of image-centric culture that we have in Long Island and parts of Long Island, and like the need to keep up appearances, or and then also I thought of online culture and like this need to sort of watch every word because anything could be picked apart or judged harshly. So I don't know if I'm reading that into it, but I was curious what, if anything, like of our, and of course also I loved that Ronan's father, I think, was a flower grower.
Yeah.
Right? I immediately thought of like the flower stands out east on North Fork, so that's like a more positive, association. But I could just be reading this, but I was wondering if there was anything off Long Island that kind of found its way into this romanticy novel.
Yeah, so I do think, like what you were mentioning with Ronan's father, that definitely came from the fact that I grew up on the North Fork.
Yeah.
I grew up surrounded by the flower stands, the farms, and like I always loved it my whole life.
Yeah.
So that, I think, definitely influenced Ronan's youth and growing up, minus the traumas.
Sure.
There's no Viking invasions on the North Fork, thankfully. Not yet. But so that was definitely an influence there. But what you were talking about, like when it came to like kind of that obsession with like image and that whole entire mentality around how you appear and like the social groups, I think that definitely was an influence a little bit from my childhood, especially because I'm autistic. And I wrote Clea, it's never explicitly stated that she's autistic, but I did write her with that intention. That's like a little fun thing, specifically like for any autistic readers, like that's for them to get. So for me especially, I frequently had trouble when I was growing up of understanding the social hierarchy.
Yeah.
I would be in second grade trying to draw up diagrams of like my second grade class social hierarchy because I was like, I don't know what's happening here, but I know I'm on the bottom. So like I really didn't understand it. And there is definitely this mentality of like, you have to present a certain way a lot of the time. You have to fit a certain mold.
Yeah.
And I missed that message for most of my life. And like I learned the lesson hard, and now I just choose to ignore it. But it was something that was such an integral part of my life growing up because I felt so othered and I didn't understand it so much.
Yes.
That when I was writing Clea's journey, I wanted to kind of explore that from the perspective of someone who is on the inside kind of, on the top of that hierarchy, but also the length she would go to with similar limitations and how that would affect her. Like, no matter where you are and what your experience is, like, it's still draining. It's still a lot. And how the toll that can take on someone, no matter what their position is.
Yes. Yeah, she is sort of imprisoned by it.
Yeah.
I did pick up on her. She doesn't like wool. She doesn't like tags. Like her clothes don't quite. I was getting.
She definitely has sensory issues.
Yes, for sure. And I liked that. I noticed that, and that felt like a very real and human detail. And I was glad. The same way I love that you included Ronan's chronic pain.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why should we have perfect heroes and heroines? Perfect. Let's give them our human experience.
Exactly.
So,
no, for me it was like really fun to be able to write characters like me, write autistic characters, write characters with chronic pain and let them still be the hero. Let them still deal with this war plot. Let them still be desirable. Like all of that was so important to me and also so fun for me to write. And like I basically use this book as therapy, so.
I mean, as it should. I think a lot of writers talk about writing as if it's like torture. I mean, it is. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and it can be emotionally draining, and it's like this. You know, it's mentally taxing. It's a brain teaser. It's not hard like being a sanitation worker is hard.
Yeah.
But it's its own kind of difficulty. However, I think you're talking about the pleasure in it too.
Yeah.
And how we can find ourselves
Yeah.
in the stories.
It can be very healing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I was thinking actually as you were talking about, and I love that too, that you don't come straight out and say that about her, but it just sort of manifests in the story. And I was thinking how often she's misunderstood in this story. That there are key moments where somebody tells her, well, you're this and you're like that. And she thinks, no, they're reading me wrong. And there's one particular part, actually, hold on, I can give this page to you.
Like, I'm trying to remember now.
Don't worry, you don't have to remember, that's my job.
No, but this is like a game for me to remember where plots actually ended up in the pages.
Is it Neve, you said? How do you say it?
Neve, yeah.
Yes, so I think I'm not giving away any spoilers by reading a bit of this, but Neve is talking about why does Clea want to marry Donal, and says, perhaps you love the idea of him, the wealth, the title, the poise. That was all you really wanted. He was your prince come to bring you admiration and the love of the people. Clea wanted to stop her, tell her how wrong she was, but the words were stuck in her throat. Tell me, Neve said, and leaned closer. If your parents hadn't pushed so hard for your marriage, would you still have wanted to marry him? But she's mischaracterizing her. There's so much more there, and that just struck me. Those moments. It's part of her character arc that by the end of the book, and there's in fact a quite serious moment where somebody with a lot of power over her fate really mischaracterizes her. I think you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that feels like her character arc, where she's learning slowly to accept, like, yes, that is. You can go ahead and think that, but like, I know who I am.
Yeah, I feel like, especially in the beginning, Clea, like, she is constantly, people are misunderstanding her, mischaracterizing her. Yeah. But Clea in the beginning is like, hold on, wait, no, I need to correct this. Yeah. And she goes far to do that. Yeah. She, like, feels she's so, like, preoccupied with how people perceive her. Yes. That she kind of wants to control the narrative in a way and control how they perceive her. And she is so insecure in herself that she feels like she has to, because, like, however they perceive her, like, oh God, does everyone view me like that? Am I, like, really acting like that? And she, like, needs to go to lengths to, like, prove it to both herself and everyone else. And a big part of her journey is learning that it doesn't matter what other people think, what other people are saying. It's up to her to decide who she is. And people are going to have opinions. They're going to have thoughts, and a lot of them are going to be wrong. Yes. And there's nothing she can really do to control every single person's thoughts. Right. She can only, like, for her, it really just becomes focusing on making sure she's happy with what she's done and her decisions. Yes.
I was wondering if that's something that you've had to grapple with, being such a public presence on TikTok, on the internet, because I was thinking how... spoiler alert, that on the internet people are judging.
Oh God. Yeah.
And think they know who you are, what you're about, or seize on a certain thing and take it out of context or whatever. And I thought, good Lord, like, this must be something that you have really had to develop a strong core about. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so like Clea, I'm a deeply insecure person. So my entire life, even before I was on the internet, I noticed I've had issues of being misunderstood. And I think it's probably because I'm autistic, and, like, I can say something and it won't register to other people the way I intended a lot of the time. My friends and I like to joke that in our friend group, a lot of us are autistic, but one of the non-autistic people likes to joke that me and my other autistic friend are mean, and we're just like, what do you mean? Like, we're just being honest about this thing. So it's just like, we never fully understand it. And also, to be fair, like, when he says we're mean, it's usually me and that other autistic friend. He says we're mean to each other. But he just doesn't understand that's just how we talk. Like, none of us, like, are taking offense. My friends, like, she'll love to make jokes about me, and, like, you know, I have agoraphobia, and she'll, like, make comments about that, and they'll be like, oh my God, that's so mean. Don't say that to Cait. And I'm like, no, that's accurate, though. That's correct. Like, that's fair game. But so... it was something that my entire life I frequently felt like I was misunderstood, or people were ascribing emotions or intent to me that I didn't have.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when I got on social media, it was 10 times worse. So I was already sensitive about that. I was already being like, wait, no, that's not what I meant. And I felt like I had to correct people. And then I was on social media and it really hit me that you cannot correct everyone and make your intentions clear 100% of the time. And there will be people who will misunderstand you accidentally, but there will be people who are going to purposefully misunderstand you all the time on purpose. Yeah. And it's something I still struggle with. And I've really had to work to teach myself to let go and like figure out when it's worth the clarification and when it's not. Yes. Like for me, like if harm is done, worth the clarification. Sure. If harm is not done, I can let it go. Or like, you know, oh, let's just private that video. My point wasn't coming across. Mm-hmm. Like that is, I've been trying to work on that and learn that a little bit and also accept that it's never gonna be perfect. Like I've gotten death threats on the internet for the most.
Oh my God.
It's, I was about to say, it's fine. I don't know.
It's not fine, but I mean, you're taking it in stride, but
it's unfortunately expected. Yeah. But like it's over things of just like being a queer person on the internet. Yeah. Like that'll do it. Or like, you know, one time I cried over watching The Last of Us. That was a mistake to some people. So I just learned that I can't control other people's opinions of me. Yeah. And there are some people you don't want to even think about their opinions. Like you don't even want to acknowledge it.
Right, or factor it in.
Yeah, it's not going to do you well no matter what in the end.
Yeah, I think you're right that there will be people who deliberately misunderstand you. There are people who don't pause to, maybe it's accidental, they don't, you know, oh, great, awesome. So we just started Q&A time. So I don't know. I'll ask you more questions on Friday.
Yeah.
Because
we'll be in Riverhead on Friday.
We'll be in Riverhead at a book place again, chit-chatting. So
it's gonna be fun.
Continue. Now it's your turn. Anybody have questions for Cait?